Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Another episode of the Fast Lane Podcast for Success. I'm your host, Derek Lane. Thank you for joining me again. This episode, I will be discussing negotiating tactics, how to be a better negotiator in your life. Got some good information. Maybe you've heard some of it, maybe you haven't. But even if you have, it's good to go over it again. And let's get started. All right. Okay, what can negotiating do for you? Well, negotiating can get you the better deal. It can keep you from paying too much for something that you want. Just basically gives you an advantage to be a better negotiator. First thing that you should do as a negotiator is get as much information as you can about the deal, about the person you're doing business with. Get incredible amounts of information, because the person with the most information usually is the one that's going to win the negotiating battle. Okay? One of the first things I've learned about negotiating is never put all of your cards on the table. Never just throw the whole hand in and show your hand. You're done. You have nowhere to go after that. Okay? So always leave a little something on the side. You may not have to use it at all, but you've got it if you do. Okay. Objections to offers. We have a little thing called feel, felt, and found. It works great. It basically says, I understand how you feel. Others have felt the same way, and this is what we found. And then you go ahead and continue with the deal. Okay. What it does is it makes the person feel like they're not alone. It's like, oh, I feel like I'm getting the worst deal ever. But you reassure that other people have felt the same way, and you understand that. And if you continue to listen, I'll explain why it's a great deal. So it doesn't leave them hanging out by themselves. Feel, felt, found. It's an easy way to remember it. You don't have to use those particular words. You can say, oh, I totally get you. I totally get you. And others have felt that way, or others have that same feeling, or however you want to pronounce it. And when we get down to it, this is what we see. Like I say, different words, whatever works for you, but the method is the same: feel and felt and found. All right. In the art of negotiating, you can, like I say, you can show your whole hand. You can not. That's best not to, obviously. One of the techniques that I would teach is that smart is dumb and dumb is smart. Okay, let me say it again. Smart is dumb, dumb is smart. See, when you're at a negotiating table or any kind of dealing, and you try to portray yourself as the smartest person in the room, people get defensive, and they don't tend to like you as much. If you know everything, then you're going to pay top dollar versus needing help. People are dying to help people. That is their natural instinct, is to help others. So when you're dumb, people help you. You're like, oh, that sounds like a good deal. I'm not really sure. What does this word mean? And then they go kind of laugh a little bit to themselves and explain it to you. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that sounds good. But you see, they're not defensive towards you. They're ready to help you. Having the other person help you get through a deal gives you the advantage. So playing dumb is being smart. Playing smart is playing dumb. Okay? I hope you understand that lesson. It's very important. Not a lot of people get that. They always tend to want to be the smartest person in the room, to show that their negotiating skills are crack. But you don't have to. You don't have to. To get what you want, you got to play shrewdly. You got to be creative and be very shrewd about how you negotiate. I had a friend of mine the other day asked me about negotiating a deal for an automobile, and he said, I'm willing to give, whatever amount it was, I'm willing to give them this. And, I shuddered. I said, don't offer to give anything. They're the ones selling the vehicle. They're the ones that have to put a price on it. You never offer anything. Just for the sake of argument, let's say it's a $20,000 vehicle. But they're willing to take 16. If you walk in the door and go, okay, I know you got it for $20,000, but I'm willing to give you 18 for it. Have we got a deal? And they would be like, yes, we have a deal. Certainly, sir. We'll work with you. Knowing that they took $2,000 more than what their bottom line, allows them to take. So they profited. You lost $2,000 is what you did. So I explained that to him, that first off, when you want to buy something, the seller has to put the price on it. Now, obviously, they're going to put a top dollar and fill you out and work it down, funnel the price down to see where you fall. And it's easy to get caught in that trap again. In other words, if they're asking 20 and you go in and say, what's your bottom dollar? And they go, 20 is my bottom dollar. And you go, well, I'll give you 18. Again, you lost $2,000 in this scenario because they were willing to take 16. So never be afraid to offer somebody something ridiculous, or to just go, nope, I'm not going to do it. You need to come back to me with something real. And chances are they would come back and go, okay, we'll take 18. Well, if they came to 18, they still have room. So now you're at a negotiating stage. So now you've got a point where you can go, all right, they came down 2,000. You can come back and say, hey, listen, I'll give you 15. And obviously it works back and forth. You can get to a point where you can finally say, hey, let's split the difference. Okay? They came down to 17, you're at 15, and you can say, look, I'm willing to split the difference. Can you do that with me? And we got to sell. Oftentimes, splitting the difference is very powerful. It saves you money. It gives them the opportunity to make the deal. They can make the deal, and if you say, yeah, they know your buying point now. But the question is, are they going to take it? A shrewd negotiator won't. And this is where, as any negotiating tactics go, you need to be able to walk out of a deal at any time. At any time. Walk away from a deal and just say, no, I can't do that. Even though inside you're burning to have that vehicle. Man, that's a perfect vehicle. If I don't buy this, my wife is going to, hammer me in the head. But you can't show that. You can't show that. You got to be able to walk away from a deal and say, hey, listen, I appreciate your time. It's been wonderful meeting you. I just don't feel that this is the deal for me. At these numbers, I don't feel comfortable with it. But thank you for your time, and be able to walk away. Some will let you walk, some won't. You got to be able to walk away. So what happens if you walk away and they let you walk, but you really want that? Hey, look, this is negotiating. There's no shame in coming back in half an hour later and say, look, I've looked around, and so far your vehicle is the best fit for me. You didn't take my offer of 16. I don't feel good at 17. So I feel that in order to get a deal done, we'll split the difference between 16 and 17. I'll give you $16.50. Okay, at one point, somebody's got to give. You can get the deal done. But most times, if you're willing to walk away, they'll come back and say, hey. Or, if you change your mind, here's my phone number. Oftentimes, they'll call you back in 30, 40 minutes and go, hey, I talked to my boss, blah, blah, blah. You know how that goes. I've got to go to the authority. I got to talk to my boss. Just like you said, well, I've got to talk to my wife. It's buying time is all it is. And by the way, when you talk about when people come up to you and you're selling them something, and you're on the sales end instead of the buying end, and they say, I've got to talk to my wife about it. Now, sometimes this is kind of a cheap shot, but sometimes it works. Does your wife make the decisions? I mean, if so, I would love to speak to her about this. And sometimes you can get people mad enough to prove that their wife doesn't make the decisions. No, she doesn't make the decisions. And I'll show you, I'll just buy it. Okay, that's what we wanted. So there are different manners to get to where you need to be in the negotiating stage. Also, that third party, blank straw man, when you approach somebody and you say, well, this is, and you don't want to insult them or whatever, you can always use a third party. Well, other people would suggest this is too much. Not me, other people. It allows them to respond to that question without taking direct offense to you personally. Well, other people, I've talked to other people and they feel like this is probably a little high. And if you're selling, a lot of people that we've dealt with have found this is a perfect price point. So you can use other people, just vague entities, to get your point across. Other people have felt this is a bargain, this is great, or other people felt this is too much. However you want to do it. Third party, it works. Okay. Also, when in the art of selling and negotiating, remember that pictures are better than words. When you paint pictures with your words, you create scenarios. Always use adjectives. We talked about that in the last podcast of communication. Anytime that you can use a lot of adjectives to describe things, to paint that picture, it works. Okay. When you're trying to sell somebody something and you want to kind of get a glimpse into who they are and their buying strategy, simply ask them about the last time they purchased, let's say it's an automobile. When was the last time that you purchased an automobile? And if you don't mind me asking, what was it that made you buy it? I mean, tell me about the features and the benefits of that vehicle for you. And people will then tell you. They're generally honest and tell you, well, it sounded like a good deal. It was a great looking car, and when I drove it, it just felt so right. So if you're listening to people, what did that person just say? And I'm breaking this down very simplistic, but if you were to get into a little bit of the neuro-linguistic programming that teaches this methodology, you'll understand a little bit more. I don't have time to go into it. It's quite, a little complicated, if you will. But people have strategies, internal and external strategies for what they do. And when you start to understand their strategies, it's like unlocking a combination lock. You go right to the numbers and voila, you open it up. So when it sounded like a good deal, well, that's an auditory response. Sound it. So you got to listen to the words. Sound it like a good deal. But they didn't externally hear a sound. It was internal. It was an auditory internal. It sounded like a good deal. Pay attention to the words that people use because they help you to turn them back to creating the sale. And the next thing the person said was, it was just a great looking car. Okay, that's a visual, great looking car. And it's external. They're actually looking at the car. It looked great. The next thing, and when I got in it and it drove it, it just felt great. All right, so that's a kinesthetic feeling of external. It felt good driving in their hands. They could just feel it. Okay, so in the simplistic terms, you've got auditory, internal, visual, external, kinesthetic, external. So now you can turn around and sell this car using those same strategies.